How do you say this phrase? Didn't you know? Didn't you know? Didn't you know? Didn't you know? As you could hear, I was changing and linking and reducing and saying that phrase in a number of different ways. And today we're going to talk about the things that we do that make up fluent speaking. So what do I mean when I'm talking about fluent speaking? In fluent speech, we don't speak word by word. We change some of the words, we link them together, we contract with verbs, and we reduce sounds. So in the last few weeks, we've been discussing these details, and I want to just briefly tell you what each of these are, and then we're going to talk about what they are, and then also why you should do it. And today we're really going to dive deep into how to do it with a lot of examples. I will also take your questions because, of course, it's a live question and answer class. So please feel free to put those in the chat at any time. It's nice to see so many of you here this morning, and welcome everyone. Okay, so looking at a phrase like it is for. One thing that I do in speech is I link words together. So I'm not breaking between it and is. It'll sound more like it is, it is, it is for, it is for. So there's a lot of places where as we link, especially a T at the end, we may change the sound and it jumps and connects to the next sound. Rather than thinking of it as two words, we want to think about it more as two syllables that connect together. It is for. Although in this phrase, typically what we would do instead is contract, and that means we're taking a pronoun, it, and a helping verb, is, and changing it to just it's. It's for, it's for. He's, have. So contractions work with have, had, would, many of these small helping verbs when there's an additional verb. And then in addition to that, rather than it's for with the full or, if I'm saying this in a phrase, it's for you, it's for him, you might hear that I'm not saying it's for you, it's for him. Rather, I'm saying it's for him, it's for you. That's because these words are less important, and my stressed word, who it's for or what it's for, is going to get the long clear vowel and the stressed long syllable. It's for you, it's for him, it's for the production, it's for the play. And so little words like for, the, that, your, etc. can get reduced, meaning my or longer vowel becomes just a short sound. So why should you do this? It affects not only how you sound in terms of sounding natural and fluent and connecting, so you don't sound choppy, you don't sound textbook or robotic, but also it affects the meaning because so much of our meaning is carried by intonation in English. The important words get stretched out, the little words need to be linked, contracted, and reduced, or it changes the meaning. So for example, it's for you sounds different and means something slightly different than it's for you. It is for you gives too much emphasis or puts the stress on is, and it sounds like I'm saying, no, it is for you because you said it's not for me. So we use length and stress to change our meaning and to do subtle differences. We'll talk about some more details of that as we practice how to do it, but it's not just for style. It's not just to sound exactly like a native speaker. You will be understood if you use the full forms, but it may you may accidentally be giving a different meaning than you mean. And let's talk about more details for that. You can get help for each of those areas, linking, reductions, and contractions in my specific videos for that. In our linking and reduced sounds playlist, we talk about all those details. I also am excited to let you know that I've launched my speech modification app, and that app will also cover these types of details, help you find out which things you're doing in your speech for linking and fluent speaking and which you aren't. So you can check that out in the links here on YouTube or also on speechmodification.com, and you can be one of the first people to try out the app. It's fully customized and individualized for each person. So I'm really excited for you to let me know what you think about it, how to help understand your accent and work on all different levels of fluent speaking in English. Okay, so let's take a look at this phrase, didn't you know? So I've already written the contraction didn't, and that comes from, of course, did not. I don't think many of you would say did you not know, or it's possible, or did not you know. We changed the order. So did not becomes didn't. How to pronounce didn't? It sounds like didn't. We don't really say didn't. We don't really say this D out. It's not didn't, but didn't. It's what's called a stopped D. Syllabic N, didn't, and then what we do with the T depends on what follows it. So if I'm saying I didn't, I might just not release that T, I didn't. If I can also say I didn't with a little bit of a true T sound there. If I'm saying didn't you, I'm either going to use a stopped T and a y sound, or you might have also remembered in the beginning, I said, didn't ya. So sometimes that T and that y sound move into more of a ch sound. So it's possible to say, didn't ya. So you kind of hear didn't ya. 2 syllables for didn't, then the T and the CH become a y sound. U is a reduction, often becomes just ya. So didn't ya or didn't ya. And then no is our stressed word, and that's going to be what's long and clear here. So I like didn't you know, because I think it sounds the most natural. It's fine to say didn't you know. That tya versus cha is not very different. Didn't cha is sounding a little more casual and relaxed. So I would stick with one of these versions. In response, you might say, I didn't know. And that's highlighting the didn't part because it's going in the conversation. If I'm just saying I didn't know, no is my stretched out word. And so this is how I recommend, if you feel like you don't use didn't yet, if you don't use that contraction naturally or don't, etc. I don't, I didn't, I haven't. You can find which of these negative contractions you use and don't use and try practicing them in some short phrases. So if you can say I didn't know, you can also practice I didn't get it, I didn't see, I didn't go there. And if you have to think of what to say and how to use it, it's going to help you get the habit of using this didn't and feeling really natural with it. So I have some podcast practices with this. It's called repeated phrase practice for intonation. And I'm going to be making some more for the different contractions. It's also some of the exercises you can do on the app, but it's a great way to get these to sound natural and to feel comfortable using them. So you could also change to, for example, he didn't. So he didn't go, he didn't know, he didn't do that. Or back to other contractions. I haven't been there, I haven't done that, I haven't seen it. I don't like it, I don't care, I don't do that, I don't listen. Sounds pretty negative. Yeah, but we are practicing negative contractions. So this method of practicing, breaking down kind of what happens and then seeing how that applies in many places can be super helpful. And I hope that you can find that as a great technique. Let's try just a couple more phrases, breaking them down and practicing, and then we'll turn to your questions. I'm happy to see so many of you here this morning. Welcome, everyone. And thank you so much for the gift, EA Sky, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions about justice and permanent and permanently. We'll do that in just a moment. Okay, so let's take another full phrase. So I could not have known. So related to I didn't know, I do not know, etc. Could not have. We typically will not use all of these helping verbs because, again, known is the most important word here. So could not have, this can reduce to couldn't. So I couldn't have known. And then even though we don't write couldn't have, when we're speaking, we actually contract all three of those. So technically a contraction is two things together. And in spoken speech, this serves as more of a reduction. So have reduces to just of. Instead of couldn't have, couldn't have, couldn't have. And because the T of couldn't is linking to a vowel now instead of an H sound, it's going to change to more of a D. So it sounds like couldn't, with a flap here, couldn't have. I couldn't have, I couldn't have. So I couldn't have known is our main phrase, but we can do the same thing with other verbs. I couldn't have been there. I couldn't have told you. I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have cared less, etc. Same thing then with wouldn't, wouldn't have, shouldn't have. So you can practice these with changing the pronoun, changing the verb, changing the contraction, and it gives you a wide variety of things to practice. I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have been there. He wouldn't have done that. He wouldn't have been there. She shouldn't have gone. She shouldn't have told me. So wouldn't have, shouldn't have. These contractions and these phrases are a great way to build up your confidence in using linked, contracted, and reduced speech, sounding more natural and feeling more comfortable with these reductions. And you don't have to try doing so many things at once. Just choosing one or two contractions or reductions that you're not currently using and building them slowly into your speech. It helps you understand and listen to native speakers, and it helps you use them more comfortably as well. Let's do a couple more for your practice, and then we'll move on to your questions. So on our same theme about knowing, I would like to know, I would like to know, would, I would gets contracted to I'd. And it sounds like the same as I'd, like I eyed that thing, has the I diphthong and a D. So I'd like to, I'd like to. So I'd like to know, sounds pretty choppy, I'd like to know. To gets reduced to more of a t. So like doesn't get reduced. It has some important meaning here, but to can become just t. I'll write it this way, almost no vowel there. I'd like to know. I'd like to know. Same idea. He'd like to know. She'd like to know. They'd like to know. Or I'd like to go. I'd like to be there. I'd like to do that. I'd like to work on it. He'd like to, etc. So I can be changing various parts of my phrase, and again, have a lot of good fluent practice for this. And then one more I want to look at, this time a question. So for the question, what did he know? We're all about knowing today. What did he know? Again, I can say it that way, I'll be understood. Naturally, native speakers will link and connect here, and it'll sound like, what did he know? What did he know? So what did contracts and reduces to whatted. So how that's written, like that. This is one that we might not write in our contractions, but we're definitely going to say it that way. And it just sounds like whatted, with a flap in the middle, what did he? And then what did he? I can use the H here, what did he know? Or when I have a little word like he, him, or her, in certain contexts, sometimes that H drops. I will say if you're a French speaker or Russian speaker or Spanish speaker, you might want to keep your sound there because you may have a tendency to overdo dropping the H and drop it places where we shouldn't. But for many people, and even for you if you're a French speaker, you can probably learn and adjust and do both ways. So what did he? We lose that H and it just sounds like what did he? What did he? So a little longer here and very quick on those. What did he do? What did he know? What did he say? Or what did she? So there we don't lose our initial consonant. What did she tell you? What did she work on? What did she wear? Etc. And then again, I can change out my question word. Why? Why did he tell you? Why did he go? Why did I do that? Why did they go? Why did they have to? So the small words are going to have reductions, connections, linking, and fluency for sounding natural in your speech. So I hope this was helpful for you. And as I mentioned before, you can get more practice for that in our Linking and Reduced Sounds playlist, as well as our podcasts for shadowing practice. We go through phrases and I help you build out using those reductions and contractions so they become more natural for you. In our new app, which just released yesterday, as you're working through your personalized program that the app develops for you based on your speech samples, it will always take you through these reductions and elements as more advanced practice for you. It also will help you with more basic pronunciation and recognizing and changing the accent patterns in your speech. So you can check that out in the links on speechmodification.com, and there will be some discounts for the first few days, the first 10 days, I think, of the release of the app. So I hope you'll go there, check it out, and see if it's a good fit for you. Okay, welcome everyone. Nice to see so many of you here. I'm excited to turn to your questions. And again, thank you for the gift, EA Sky. Your support means a lot to me, and it's nice to see you here week after week. So you were asking about the word just and justice. So in the word just, if I say, was it just, is something just, and that's like a stressed main word, it's going to have the j, the schwa, and the sound. So I wouldn't change the spelling here. Maybe you could think of the U as UH, just. And it's going to be long and clear. The judge's decision was just. But when I'm using this word as kind of a modifying word, I was just talking to her, it's going to have more of a reduced schwa there. And you can think about it as being very short. Just a minute, just going to go, just going to tell you, just. So it's still going to have that same sound, but it's going to be shorter and more reduced. But in justice, just is the stress syllable, so it's always going to have the full version of the vowel. So it's going to sound like justice. And this, oops, not a D. I was thinking about the T and how it sounds a little bit like a D there, because I don't use an aspirated T here in an ST blend, justice. It sounds a little bit unaspirated, almost like a D, justice. So you can think about the ST going together. They were fighting for justice. Yeah, good words. Thank you for those. And then you were also asking about permanent and permanently. So let's break those down for you. Let's look at how to pronounce permanent. In permanent, we have first syllable stress, letters ER say the sound. So you can think of that as ER, UR, whichever way just helps you get that It's not a diphthong, no gliding, just the straight sound. So I'll just use ER, per, and then, not permanent. In the second syllable, we're unstressed. Letter A is going to be the schwa. So perma. And then nent, we're going to have another schwa between our ends. But we may use very little vowel there. So it's going to sound sort of like permanent. So you need a little bit of an or an sound here between your two ends. Permanent. So keep that last syllable pretty short and reduced. You might think of it as an I. That might be a helpful way. If you see the E, it makes you think like nend, and it's really not the vowel. It's a more of a reduced schwa or sound. Permanent, nent. And then permanent, again, I might not let that final T out, depending on the context. So if I'm saying like a permanent marker, you're not going to hear that T. If I say, yeah, it's permanent, then probably ending on it, you'll hear that T coming out. And then adding permanently, because the T is followed by the L, that's where I'm not going to really hear that last T. So I'm going to hear permanent with a stopped T. Sorry, that is not very clear. You won't hear that T there. It's just going to be unreleased. So permanently. So it was permanently changed. I hope that it's not permanently affected. Yeah, great words. Thank you for that. And if I have longer videos for any of your words, I'll put some links in the description and in the comments after class so you can go into more detail. So that's true for anything that you ask today. If I don't get to your word, or if you want a little more detail, I do always go back and refer you to more detailed videos on the channel or resources on our website as well. So please feel free to leave your questions right now in the chat, or if you're watching later on, you can leave a comment and I'll get back to you with answers. Okay. Thanks, Undead Heart. It's nice to see you. And yes, I'm excited to be releasing the app, and I hope that it does well. Okay. We have a question about how to say you are on your own. Okay, so I'm saying that one word at a time. You are on your own. But this is a phrase that's definitely going to have some linking and reduction. So let's talk about how to say this fluently in your speech. So first of all, you are. If I'm saying it as two words, it's going to sound like you are with vowel to vowel linking, you are, because I'm moving from that rounded U to the unrounded R. But often we're going to just contract that to your, which sounds the same as this your, which sounds like your. If I'm stressing on it, you're on your own, I'm going to use the full or sound. It can also get reduced to more of a you're, because in this phrase, you're on your own. Own is going to be the important word. It's going to be the stressed one. So you're on. So if I'm using you're and going to on, you're on is going to link together. So it's going to sound like you're on. So the R is going to jump and connect. You're on, your own. And then this your is also going to be reduced to a your. And this R is also going to connect to the O of own. So you're on your own. So how I would write that, if that's giving you difficulty, to think about making that connection, you can say it, think of it like you're on, you're own. So I don't really think of this as being a true y sound there. The yura, the yur connects to the but if it's easier for you to say ron than your, then say ron, you're on, and roan, you're on, you're on your own, you're on your own. So a little bit of stress on and main stress on own. You're on your own. I'm sorry, you're on your own on that. Yeah, that's a great phrase. I haven't covered that before. Thank you for bringing that up. I think it's really interesting to see how different this sounds. You are on your own versus you're on your own. So no wonder you're asking about how that should be pronounced. Great suggestion. Thank you. Okay. Questions about downloading and using the app. Yes, so you'll go to the link at studio.com/speech modification, or you can just go to my website, speech modification, and it'll take you right to the landing page. It'll walk you through, it'll get you the app on your phone. It works on different platforms. And then the onboarding process, you answer some questions, give it some information about yourself, and then it starts to generate your customized program. So it's a combination of my materials, resources, and methodology with AI so that it can adapt and adjust to you and learn with you as you go so that it's modified specifically for you. So check out the links. I did put a link in the description of this video as well. And if you have more questions, you can always check out details about it on our website, speechmodification.com. Okay, great. We have a question or comment. Difficult to pronounce profit and profit easily, especially when it comes to the second syllable, whether they can be pronounced with E as in pet or I as in pit. Yes, okay, so profit, same as this profit. A little confusing because the spelling is so different, and that E might make you think that it should have an eh like pet, but it is going to be an I sound like it because it's a reduced second syllable. So they both have stress on the pra syllable. Letter O says the ah sound. And then we have just a reduced I in the second syllable, profit, fit. So you can think of it almost as being almost no vowel there. So the pra is long, and then I'll write it with an I, profit, fit. But you can think about fit, like how quickly can I go from the f to the t? How little vowel can I use there? Profit. So the prophet did not profit from his wise words. Great word. Thank you for that question. I hadn't really thought about how those two words have the same pronunciation before, so thanks for bringing that up. Okay. We have questions about you also asked about Samuel and Emmanuel. I do think I may have a video for Emmanuel, and Samuel has the same ending. So when it comes to names, of course, you always need to check with the individual, but these are pretty standard names. We're going to have first syllable stress. In Samuel, the ah vowel, like in sat. And then Ewell is going to, the U is going to have the y sound and the u sound, Samu. So thinking about it like Sam, you, and then Samuel, we're going to have almost just only an L there. Again, kind of that dark reduced vowel, Samuel. A little bit of a schwa there, or an sound before the L. And because I'm going from a rounded U to the dark O sound, a little W connects those two. Samuel. So Samuel and Emmanuel is just going to be man, and then the same Ewell. So Samuel, Emmanuel. Thank you for that, and nice to see you here today. Okay, question about words with ORY, like predatory, mandatory, signatory. Yes, so the British versus the American in these two. So I'm not sure if the British has a different syllable stress, but what you're probably noticing there is that even in American English, for mandatory, predatory, we actually say the T the way the British will. So we use a true T here. It doesn't get flapped. And that's because in all of these words, predatory, there's secondary stress on the tor syllable. So if I'm just doing like gator, that's what comes to mind immediately with tor, that's stressed on the first syllable. That's going to be a flap. It's going to be like gator, and the or is going to be an sound. No stress on those letters tor. So that gets flapped. But in predatory, we have secondary stress. The or keeps its or sound, and the T keeps its t sound. So it sounds like predatory. Main stress here, secondary stress here. And the way the secondary stress shows up in this is just that I do say the T and I do say the or. It doesn't need any length, not predatory. It's not longer or stressed in that way. It's just the secondary stress is marked by the T and the or happening. So same thing, mandatory, signatory, etc. Those tory words do have that T sound. So that's probably what you're noticing, that it feels more British, but you can tell if you did predatory, it doesn't sound correct. So no flap there. Nice to see you again here, Undead Heart, and thank you. That's a great observation. Okay. So yes, EA Sky is asking about the payment for the app. So you can try it out. There's, I think, a money back guarantee if you don't like it. And the subscription, you can pay for a year or you can pay for 3 months at a time. And it gives you a daily lessons, or you can speed it up and go more quickly. It also gives you a full library of resources that you can use. So it maps out a daily practice plan for you. And then it also has a coach that you can practice live conversation with. You can ask it questions. You can ask it to give you specific resources. So it'll develop, and you can use it as much as you want, as much or as little as you want every day. But it tries to encourage you to develop a daily practice to implement your best practice for working on your accent and your pronunciation. Okay. And then we also have a question about the name of the podcast. So my podcast is Speech Modification, and you can get links to that on the website as well. If you go under free resources, you can find that on all the places that the podcast happens. So I think it's Smart American Accent Training by Speech Modification. Most places is the title. Thank you for following up on that. Okay, let's talk about we have a question about triumphal arch. Yes, okay, so triumphal arch. So the word arch is pretty straightforward. It has the R and the CH sound, so nothing too strange there. Triumphal is going to be stressed on the syllable. The letter I, it's like in triangle. It has the the I diphthong. So secondary stress probably because it has that clear vowel. And then schwa, the sound. PH is an F sound, triumphal, and then an unstressed schwa there. So triumphal arch. As I'm going from tri to you'll notice there's a little bit of a y connecting because I have a front I vowel and I need vowel to vowel linking between my I and my triumphal. The triumphal victor, the triumphal arch. Good question and very timely with that being in the news. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay. We have a question about pronouncing R is hardest for me. Yes, definitely. R is a difficult sound, especially because the American R is so different from other R's. I have a full playlist here on the channel for talking about how to do R. And basically, you want to work on saying the R in different contexts. So you might find it easier to say like paper, and that can help you with rain or red. Or if rain and red are at the beginning is easier, that can help you with and air and ear and ire. So they all have the same position in the mouth with the tongue pulled back and tight. And I have a lot of tips and tricks on that American R playlist to help you get your R to feel more confident and stronger in it. And also that's something that the app can help you work through and give you feedback on as well. Okay, great. We have a question about dark L and light L. So basically, if I'm saying a word like light, my tongue will lift to the front behind my teeth. Same place you can feel it if you say like toe or dough or no. My tip of my tongue is going up. And when I say low, the tip of the tongue is also going up there. The sides of the tongue don't go up. So that's the difference. If I say no, my whole tongue seals off. If I say low, just the tip goes up. When I'm saying something like feel, basically that L is going to have a little bit of a sound before it. So what I want is my back of my tongue to be in the shape that it is if I say like good or book, So the back of the tongue is lifted. And then if I'm saying feel, it's possible to not lift my tongue for that L. I can just do it with with using this vowel and coloring the L. I still recommend lifting your tongue there, because if I'm saying feel it, that L becomes more of the light L again anyway. And what matters more is that I want to make sure my vowels before that dark L are using vowel to vowel linking. So in eel, I need a y glide. I need to make sure that when I'm saying feel, that I'm not just going right to a liquid L or a light L like feel, where my whole tongue is lifting. Feel, I have that front E to that back and my y connects those two. Or if I'm saying something like cold, I have that rounded O, and before my of I have kind of a w sound connecting those two. Owl, whole, cold. So I think for a lot of people, the problem or the challenge with the dark L is less about how you're making the L sound and what you're doing before the L sound. So oftentimes when people work on those vowels, then their L starts to sound more natural. But the biggest advice about the dark L is don't lift your whole tongue. And there are a few places where, because of what's coming next, it's easier not to finish that L with lifting the front of the tongue, but focus on the vowels before the L. And I do have a lot of help for that here on the channel. And that's, again, something that you can look at the breakdown for that vowel to vowel linking before L's in my videos for that. After class, I can put a link to that in the description. And it's also something that you'll find on speech modification resources in our online courses and in our app. Okay, great. All right, we have a question about how to pronounce sachet. So back to the French words. We had a French theme last week. In sachet, my stress is on the shay syllable. The letter CH say the SH sound, and then the T is silent. We have, not a schwa. We have the A diphthong in English. In French, it might be less of an A with a sliding A, but in English, shay. And then the letter A says the A vowel here, like in sat. So, sachet. So she sewed a sachet with fragrant blossoms. Yeah, okay. And then you also asked about how to pronounce vulgar. So vulgar, it's like a word like burglar, or we have that AR and OR just have the ER sound when they're at the end typically, because we have first syllable stress here. So letter U says the sound, schwa, vol, and then letter G says the G sound. So I would write it as vulgar. I hope that his words weren't too vulgar for you. Yeah, good words. Thank you for that. Okay, let's see. We have a question about whether lettuce and lettuce have the same pronunciation. Yes, they do. And there are many children's jokes about this. Lettuce, both, because what happens here is when there's T in the middle of a word followed by an unstressed syllable, so let is stressed and us is unstressed, lettuce, then we're going to flap those. And also when we end a word with a T and the next word starts with a vowel, as we link that T, it's going to also sound like a flap. So they're both going to sound like lettuce, although I would say in lettuce, this sometimes becomes more of an I vowel. So when I say lettuce, I definitely use I here. I don't say lettuce, I say lettuce. So I'm going to say those a little different, lettuce. And also, people don't usually say lettuce unless they're stressing on it, in which case they would say let with an unreleased T, us. Let us do that. Usually let us at the beginning is just going to become let's. Let's go, let's talk, let's do it. Unless I'm saying let us, in which case I'm probably stressing the us, so then it's not going to sound the same as lettuce. So there are some differences, but it's close enough that it makes for puns and jokes. Okay, very good. Thank you for that question. We have a question about ombre. So O-M-B-R-E. First syllable stress, letter O says ah. Ombre. And then secondary stress on the bre syllable. Ombre or ombre. Maybe it's ombre. I better check that one. So I'll take out my trusty Merriam-Webster's. What I would say is I also really like using Merriam-Webster's and Oxford Learner's Dictionary online, because then you can click on the word and hear it. You don't have to be able to read the symbols in the dictionary. And also different dictionaries use different symbols, so you have to learn the dictionary that you're using, what works for you. Okay, so in this dictionary it says ombre, ombre, or ombra. So many different ways. Basically, it's a French word that we mispronounce in English, or we've changed in English. So ombre, ombra, and it also even had ombre. I've never heard that one before, but that doesn't mean that it's wrong. Yeah, okay, thank you for that. I always like having to be challenged and look things up. I don't know the pronunciation of every single word, and I use resources and references all the time to double check my pronunciation. I feel like it's always good to especially know how to use tools, and I hope that my channel is a good tool for you when it comes to how to pronounce something. You can use the search box on the channel, and if I have a video or if I've mentioned your word in a video, it should pop up, or you can leave a comment and I'll help you find resources or add your word to cover in a future class. Okay. Great, wonderful class today. It's nice to see so many of you here. Happy Memorial Day weekend. I do have some videos about how to pronounce Memorial and Memorial Day, if that's something that you're interested in. Yes, I hope you're having a great weekend so far. Okay, a lot of questions. I'm going to try to make sure I get to at least one of everyone's today. And if you've asked multiple questions, I may not get to all of them, but I will try. I see that I missed one for how to pronounce we're and your. And these are definitely on topic for today, talking about our contractions. So if I'm stressing on these, then like if I'm saying no, we're doing it, it's going to have the full ear diphthong. Same thing with your. If I'm stressing it, no, it's your turn, it's going to have the full or sound, like this word your, as I mentioned earlier, just the or. But in fluent speech, these are often unstressed because they're part of contracting and reducing. We're going to go, we're going to do that. The we're often starts sounding a little more just like were, same as the word were. So we're doing it, we're laughing, we're talking. I'm not saying it's not this one, it is the contraction for we are, but it ends up sounding the same as were. I think we're going to do that. And then your, like I mentioned before as well, loses its reduction, is going from or to an your. So I think you're right. You're gonna have to tell him. I think you're gonna go. We also reduce this your. So I think it's your turn. Same idea. They both become a your. You don't have to reduce those all the time. I can say we're going, and you're going to go. It's all right to use the full form, but you will often hear them reduced like that, so it's useful to know that. And sometimes the reason those reductions happen is not because we got together and had a meeting and said, let's make it tricky for non-native speakers to understand how to say these things. It's just that it's more efficient and fluent and faster. If I say we're, there's more movement than just were. It's not sliding, and your is easier than your. So many places where we can reduce the load on our mouth in terms of how we move, that's where reductions tend to come from. It makes it smoother and easier and more efficient. And actually, you might find that it's easier to pronounce English when you use them. even though initially it might feel weird because it doesn't really match the spelling. It's about keeping the tongue kind of in the schwa position, and having as small of movements as possible instead of like we're, a lot of big movement, or it's just less movement happening there. And then it's easier to get to the longer words and spend more time on them because I'm not taking so much time on the shorter, unstressed words. Okay, that maybe was more than you asked for, but that's the reason why. Okay, question about ball versus bowl. So in ball, and then bowl. In ball, ah, we have the ah vowel. In o, we have the o diphthong. This one slides, this one doesn't. Ah is also a lot more open than o. So when I say ball, my mouth is going to be more open for that vowel. Bowl is going to be more closed and more rounded, and it'll slide. Because these can be hard to make that difference, because they're so close in any other way, use another word with the same vowel. So for example, I saw the ball. You want those to be the same, although saw, ball, the L affects how that ah sounds a little bit. And there's no bowl, because between saw and no, you probably have less problem differentiating those vowels. Although this is one of those vowel differences that certain native languages have difficulty with. And so I do break that down in a video talking about those two vowels, helping you just differentiate them and practice those. And that's also something that the app will notice. If you can't hear that difference and make that difference clearly, it's going to tease that out and give you practice for each of those vowels separately and then comparing them to each other. So thank you for that question. Wonderful. Okay. Question about linking past tense verbs ending in ed when the next verb starts with a vowel. Okay, very good. So let's look at a couple examples. So I moved it. That D is just going to naturally link. So it sounds basically the same as if I were to say moved it. And many people find that easier to say because if I have to say moved is not easy for people. Moved it is how we just naturally say it. So thinking of it this way, you're not doing anything differently, but that D is kind of jumping on to the next vowel. Moved, the ED says the D sound. And that's the most common thing for ED to say. But some other words like talked, the ED says a T sound. So if I'm just saying I talked, you're going to hear a T sound. But if I say I talked about, that T, because when T links to a vowel, it turns into a flap. It's going to turn back into a D. So talked about is going to sound the same as talked about. Same thing, that D is going to link. So regardless of whether your ED is going to say a D or a T sound, they both, when linking to a vowel, turn back into a flap sound that links to the vowel. Moved it, talked about, passed it, stopped it. You're going to hear that D there. Yeah, that's a great question, and that's one of the details that I often help my clients with, because what happens is that people will drop that ED or they won't link it properly, and it'll break up the flow of their speech and sound like an accent error. And those accent errors really matter because things like moved versus move versus moves tells people that you're using the correct grammar and carries a lot of information. We pack a lot of grammar information on the ends of words, and then being able to link them correctly really matters for being well understood when you're speaking. So those are really important details for most non-native speakers in their accent. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, we have a question about urged. So again, back to our past tense. So urged is an example of the D just says a D sound here. The J has the J like in jump, and then we have the at the beginning. So in urged, it's a little bit difficult for people to do the J, D together, but there's nothing really in between. So I urged. I would think about it just like that. And what you might find easier is to actually practice linking that at first. I urged urged. We're going to have kind of like, again, that urge, right? The D links on, although we don't usually say urged with many things followed by a vowel. Urged it. Usually would be saying urged him or her followed by a consonant sound. So then I do have to do that jd in close succession. Yeah, difficult word. Thank you for that question, and I hope that helps you with urged. Okay, great. We have a question about rugged and beloved, and why do they, instead of, so I don't say rugged, I say rugged. 2 syllables, rugged. So it sounds like id at the end, or beloved. So beloved, people do both. So for example, if we, in church, you might hear dearly beloved. So that's be or beloved. That's a 3-syllable version. People will also say beloved, like loved. So my beloved pet. You can use both in there. I don't think you can do rugged. Rugged is always going to be rugged. Rugged. And yeah, I'm not sure why that is. I know with words like beloved or blessed is another one. People say I feel blessed, but they might say blessed, the Blessed Virgin Mary, for example. Or blessed be the, or just in blessed, it's just a T, blessed. Some of these may be from like more old-fashioned language or how we tend to use it. So that is something to watch out for. It's less common. Most often when you're going to see a consonant and ed, it's just going to be a d sound and not 2 syllables. Except for words like needed and wanted. I can't do a T and a D right in a row, so I have to add a syllable there. Those have to be wanted and needed. You're going to have that id sound. It just also happens on a few other words. But see, we have rugged but bugged. That bugged me. We don't do it there. So I don't know why it happens for rugged. I mean, I guess maybe one explanation is that this isn't a verb, it's an adjective. The rugged exterior. And same thing, like the blessed day, that's an adjective version versus the verb. He was blessed by the. So it may be that adjectives are more likely to do the 2-syllable version and verbs are more likely to do the single-syllable version. I'm not sure of the pattern off the top of my head, but that's something to consider. Okay, thank you. That's a great question. I love that kind of thing. It's interesting and fun, and it's also, I'm sure, frustrating because there's no way to know that until you start looking words up and noticing what you hear. So it's just, again, many things follow rules and patterns for spelling and pronunciation in English, and then there's just exceptions as well. Okay, wonderful. Let's take a few more questions. We have a question about the pronunciation of British versus American for drawn, drawing, draw, and drew. So let's look at draw. So in American English, we're going to have the ah vowel there. Draw, ah. So in American English, ah, as I mentioned before, is nice and open like the ah vowel, but slightly rounded. And this is the symbol for it. In British English, they have this vowel, aw, which is further back. It's also rounded, but it's almost more in the throat. And so draw, they might use that. Or some British accents also will put an R there, draw. So even though there's no letter R, they're going to do more like an R sound, drawer. You can, as I may have said before, there's no one British accent, no one American accent, but in general, when you're making that comparison, it's probably mostly going to be the shape and the intensity of that ah vowel versus aw in British. Then drawn, same idea, drawn or drawn. Forgive my British accent, it's not perfect, but should give you the general idea. And then I would say where it's most likely to have that R creep in is in a word like drawing. We're going to just have drawing with nothing between the ah and the ing, drawing. But in British English, they may say that more like drawing. So that's called the intrusive R. It also happens in the New York accent and the Boston accent. So there are some accents in the US that still hold on to this intrusive R that happens in some British dialects as well. Drawing. So that's the main difference there. And then drew, I think, is the same in both. It just has the oo vowel. I would say maybe drew it. The way they do their dr, drew, sounds a little different in different British accents than American English. So it's not exactly the same. In the dictionary, the IPA is going to be the same for those, but you'll hear subtle differences in how we say the vowels or how those consonants and vowels connect. If you're interested in British versus American English, I do have a playlist for that here on the channel. Also, I mentioned earlier that Oxford Learner's Dictionary. You can listen to kind of a general British and a general American accent. It is a little bit more biased towards the British, so sometimes the American pronunciations there, I don't think match what Americans really do, but it can often give you a global idea of which words are different in British versus American English, and that's the Oxford Learner's Dictionary. You can get help for using a dictionary. I have a video about it here on the channel or in our free practice on speechmodification.com. I have an exercise with links to those dictionaries and some details about how to use them. Okay, great. Such a good class today. I think we'll have time to go a little bit long to make sure we get to everyone's questions. So feel free to put your questions in as they come up or later on as a comment if you're watching as a replay. Okay, we have a question about, sorry, I'm trying to make sure I don't miss anybody. Precisely and profoundly versus authenticity. So are you asking about meaning or pronunciation? So precisely, we stress on the sice syllable. PRE is going to be a short little reduced sound, letter I is going to say the I diphthong, precisely. So I would write that as precisely. So that's precisely correct. And then you also asked about profoundly. Same idea. It's going to have and then our ow diphthong here. Profoundly. That D is not really going to be let out, so not a strong D. Not profoundly, but profoundly. It may almost be fully swallowed. You just don't want a really long N, not profoundly. Stop your N, profoundly. And then for authenticity, we stress on the T syllable. So third to last syllable, authenticity. Sounds like AU says ah. Often. Very little vowel there, little sound or I sound, authenticity. Flapping that last T, making it sound a little bit more like a D. So authenticity. Yeah, good words. I do think I have a video for authentic versus authenticity, and I'm not sure about the other two. Okay. We have a question about the meaning of rock bottom. So it basically means the lowest something can go. So someone will say, I've hit rock bottom, meaning like things couldn't get any worse. Or in the scope of how things went, rock bottom is when things were at their worst, and then maybe that's where you're going to start improving from there. Good. We have a question about how to say it's an apocalyptic event. So it's an apocalyptic event. Yeah, people have been searching for apocalypse and apocalyptic and a few other kind of gloomy words lately. So I don't know what that says about the current state of the world, but I guess we want to know how to say it. So let's see, apocalypse. So your other phrase was, it's an apocalypse. Okay, so let's look at both of these in connected speech. So you already included that contraction there. It's an, we'll link those two together. If I'm just saying an, that word by itself, it's going to have the a vowel. But here, we're going to lose that vowel almost. So it'll sound kind of like it's an, a short little I or almost no vowel there. My N is going to link to the apocalyptic. And that's going to start with an sound. Then it's going to move to an open ah, stressed on the pa. It's an apocalyptic. Except for I'm not going to say that T aspirated. Apocalyptic. Sound a little bit more like a D because of the blend. And then event. I didn't leave myself a lot of room here. All right. It's an apocalyptic event. So main stress is going to be on poc syllable, and second, and also some stress on vent of event. It's an apocalyptic event. And then it's an apocalypse. Same thing with it's an apocalypse. Just stressing on pa here. It's an apocalypse. So apocalypse. Let's hope we don't have too many apocalyptic events that we have to talk about. But just in case, we'll be ready with pronunciation and fluent speaking. Thanks for that question. Okay. Question about pronouncing wouldn't it. So wouldn't comes from would not. Wouldn't it? What we do here is we link the T to the it, wouldn't it? And because we have an NT, what that turns to in most connected speech is just an N. So you can hear that in words like interview. Often we'll just say interview. Same thing happens here. Wouldn't it? Instead of flapping that, wouldn't it? It becomes more wouldn't it? Because the stress here is on the would. So it sounds like wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? Yeah. Actually, I need to put something in here between, not wouldn't it. That we might actually hear that wouldn't it with it being really reduced, but a little bit of an sound, wouldn't, or an sound. I would say probably a good way to think of it. Wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be nice if we could live in peace and harmony? Wouldn't it be great if English weren't so complicated to pronounce correctly? Great one. I do have some videos for practicing with wouldn't it, wouldn't have, couldn't have, for shadowing and reduced sounds practice on our playlist for that. So if you would like a link to that, let me know in the comments after class. And I will put those links in the description for you. And just so you know, when you do comment on videos or after class, that really helps the channel, because the more activity on a video, the more YouTube knows, oh, people actually like this content and want to know about it. And then it shows it to more people. One of the most difficult struggles in a YouTube channel is you may have good content, but it doesn't always get to the right people. And you people who come to our Saturday class are just such a wonderful part of the audience, and your coming to the class is so helpful for the channel to grow. And when you interact with my videos, when you watch them, like them, share them, and especially comment and interact with them, it just helps them go out to the right people and for more people to see them and get the help that I'm trying to bring to people. I will say I'm really excited to announce that we've reached 200,000 subscribers, which is a milestone I never would have imagined when I started this. I started the channel just to have a place to store some videos that I was wanting to make for clients that I was working with, so that they would have another resource to go to, and then it's become its whole own wonderful thing. I really love the community here, so thank you so much for being a part of it and contributing. I really appreciate it. Okay, so let's turn to your questions. So question about Chicago being French. Yeah, so a lot of names in the Midwest, Fond du Lac, etc. That it would be Fond du Lac. Like the French is long gone in some of those Midwestern names, but Chicago. Be careful. We don't say it like we would in the French. It's not. Well, it is like the French in the sh part. The letter ch say the I sound. So you can think about it like Chicago. Chicago. Yeah, middle syllable stress. Yeah, okay. But you don't want an E, not Chicago. That would be more French, right? But Chicago. Yeah, okay. I lived in Chicago for a while when I was young, and now I live here. Okay, we have a question about yes, subscription of the app and channel membership fee are separate. So I do have channel memberships where I offer access to my online courses. If you purchase that through YouTube and then you contact me on speechmodification.com, I'll set you up with online courses. Unfortunately, because the app is hosted by someone else, I can't give it out for free. I don't have a lot of control over the subscription and the pricing because there's a percentage taken by the app host. So yeah, that's just a standard price. Eventually, maybe I might be able to work it out with that being a benefit of channel membership. So I'll let you know in the future if that happens. But thank you so much, those of you who are channel members. That does really just support the channel directly and allows for more resources here on YouTube. Okay. Welcome, Jose. Nice to see you. Oh, you had the Chicago question. Yes. Okay, we have a question about axis and access. So, for example, the two axes or one axis has the a vowel. Letter X says the k and s sounds, and then we have an I sound. So it sounds like axis. This axis. And to access something, slightly different. It also has the a and first syllable stress, but here we do have the e vowel for the second syllable. So that sounds like access. How do I get access to the axis? Yeah, so shorter here, reduced vowel, secondary e vowel there. But very similar, those two. I do have a video about access and excess with the EX as well. That's another question that people often ask about those similar words. Okay. We have a question about in feel lucky and real life, what does the linking of the L sound like? So if I'm saying I feel lucky, I'm really just going to kind of do one L there, feel lucky. That's just going to hold a little bit longer. So this will be more like a light L. I feel lucky today. Do you feel lucky? And then in real life, same idea. But in real life, we have a little more eel here in real life. Feel lucky, real life. Yeah, maybe they're pretty much the same. They both link with one long L. Okay, I'll take a couple more questions and then we'll need to wrap up for today. It's going nice and long. Many great questions, so it's nice to see everyone here. So we have a question about the word important. So important. So this is said different ways by different people. I would say younger people now are using more important. They use a D there or a flap there. I tend to use important, where that vowel is pretty much gone. So an unreleased T, important, and then just another T with another syllabic N with an unreleased T, important. I do have several videos about important, so I'll put a link to that after class so you can get more details and more help for that. Okay, question about heel and hill. So heel, if I'm stressing on it, does sound the same as heel. Heel go, heel do it. But in fast speech, it sounds more like he'll. He'll go, he'll do it, he'll have to. And then hell is different, where it has the eh sound. So that's the same as like he fell into hell. So the eh vowel is very distinctive there. Yeah, good point. And that ties into our contractions and reduced sounds theme for today. Okay, question about watched it and how to link them together. I do have a video about this. And it goes back to what we were talking about with past tense. So watched is an example of the ed says t there. So we have wa, ch, t. So if I'm just saying I watched, you're going to hear the ch and the t sound. But when we link it, when we link a t to a vowel, it turns back into a flap. So watched it is really going to sound the same as watched it. I watched it on the internet. I watched it happen live. I watched it last night. Yeah. So watched it is usually easier for people to say than watched. So it's a good place to start if you're struggling with that pronunciation. Okay. We have a question about the O. Question about O in British. Dedicated to the letter O. So in American English, the letter O, for example, as in the word hot or job, is typically the ah vowel. So one way to think about it is in American English, when you see an O, it's often going to be ah. We don't spell very many words with letter A for ah, but you probably think of A when you think of this sound. So thinking above the word father, my father got hot, my father's job, matching those two is going to help you get the American A. In British English, it's going to be more that aw I was talking about earlier, what's more rounded, hot, job, it's further back in the throat, and we don't have this vowel in American English. So they'll say, my father is hot. My father's job. Now, I don't do a great British accent, but the difference really here is in how far forward it is, and what you want in American English is that your letter O in these types of words is not going to be rounded. So no rounding, not hot, but ha, ot. Think of just like the doctor says, say ah, your tongue is down and flat, and your lips aren't rounded. I have a lot of videos for that, specifically those two vowels, British and American English, and then also how to help you get that American ah vowel, because most people see the O and they may do some sort of rounding, which is incorrect in American English. Okay, great. Thank you for leaving comments to help the algorithm. I see your comments and enjoy them, and I always try to give you a response as well. I like our conversation, so thank you for that. You're one of my most loyal channel viewers, and I very much appreciate that. Okay, so follow up on axis of evil. Yeah, I was thinking of that as well. Axis of, yeah, so axis of evil. Yes, the axis of evil. Yeah, that's how you would say that phrase. Okay, great. So we had a question about Sara. So this is different, pronounced differently in different areas. Most US speakers will say Sara with the air diphthong, Sara. And it can also be spelled this way. But any individual person named Sara, you should ask them, because this one might also be Sara. And then some regions like New York, other East Coast accents may say more like Sarah. So more of an a vowel, like sat, Sarah. This is non-standard. Sarah is more common. But if someone is from New York and their name is Sarah, they'll probably say Sarah and not Sarah. So you could try to get the individual person's name correct. This is the most common. We also have Sara. It's a possibility. you can also see Sara spelled this way as well. Yeah, names are tricky. I do have a names playlist, and I try to get specific for specific people, but when it comes to broadly how to say a name, you always want to find out from that one individual how they say their name, because it may be different than the sort of standard way. Okay. Yeah, okay, good. So some of you are helping answer each other's questions there. I hope I managed to answer everyone's questions today. Thanks for sticking with me, an extra long class. Celebrate Memorial Day weekend, celebrate the launching of the app and 200,000 subscribers. Thanks so much for your wonderful questions. They always make for a great class. And check out our video on reduced sounds coming out on Tuesday. We're going to go into some more details about which words reduce and how to use them naturally in your speech. And of course, you can get practice for that in our reduced sounds playlist. Also, do check out our podcast. Those videos are here on the channel and also other places that podcasts are. The podcast videos are really designed for you to be able to listen and practice and really implement what we're doing here on the channel. So even though the app has a fee and is a subscription, I know not everyone can afford that. So there's really still lots of wonderful resources here on the channel. And you can support the channel by listening to, watching our videos, commenting, sharing, and liking. And if you want to go a little further and you have the budget for it, do check out our new app. Also, we have online courses that are always kept at a very low price. So if the app's a little pricey for you to invest in that subscription, you can get a lot of help in our online courses as well. Get more details for all of that on our website, speechmodification.com, and many free materials there as well. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend, and I look forward to seeing you next week in class and also in Tuesday's new video. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com. Remember, if you want to sound like a native speaker, you can do it. speechmodification.com. Bye, everyone. Thanks for a wonderful class today.